You are listening to Meet the Thriller Author. I'm your host, Alan Peterson, a thriller author and a big fan of the genre myself. This is episode 228. Before we jump into today's interview, I want to share something I think you'll find really valuable, especially if you're serious about improving your writing craft. MasterClass is running an incredible pre-Black Friday deal right now, up to 50% off. If you ever thought about taking a class from legends like James Patterson, Walter Mosley, David Baldacci, Dan Brown, Aaron Sorkin, Shonda Rhimes, Salman Rushdie, and many others, this is the perfect moment. So I put together a link that helps support this podcast. You can go to thrillingreads.com/class BF25. It's all one word, class BF as in Black Friday 25. So just head to that link to get the discount and see the full lineup of amazing writing courses. The offer ends before Black Friday, so don't wait too long. Again, the link is thrillingreads.com/class BF25. Now, on to today's episode. I'm excited to welcome back Brian Andrews, one half of the Andrews and Wilson writing duo. Brian is joining me solo on the show to talk about their newest thriller, Tom Clancy Executive Power. This is the 26th Jack Ryan novel and the third time Andrews and Wilson is carrying forward the Clancy legacy. So I'm very excited to welcome Brian back on to the podcast. The book comes out on November 25th, so make sure to go check that out. So let's dive in. Here's my interview with Brian Andrews. Hey everybody, this is Alan with Meet the Thriller Author, and on the podcast today I have Brian Andrews, who is part of the incredible writing team of Andrews and Wilson. That is Brian Andrews, my guest today, and Jeffrey Wilson. They're Navy veterans, best-selling authors, and the minds behind Tier 1 series, Sons of Valor and Shepherds. And now, of course, the continuation of Tom Clancy's iconic Jack Ryan character. Their latest, Executive Power, comes out November 25th. And it's a high-stakes, high-tension addition to the Clancy legacy, in my opinion. Brian, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Alan. It's great to be back.
Yeah, so you're solo today.
Yeah, I know. My partner in crime is not going to be able to make it today. But hey, maybe he'll be on next time. And who knows, maybe I'll be fighting crime out there in my mask and cape. So we do sometimes have to switch off.
Yeah, absolutely. That's part of the team, right? Teamwork.
Great. Exactly.
So let me start right off the bat with a big one. So what was it like to step into the Tom Clancy universe for the first time a few years ago? I'm imagining it was like surreal, intimidating, exciting, all of the above.
Oh, so exciting because, I was a submarine officer and I was, reading Tom Clancy's Hunt for Red October while I was on a submarine.
Wow.
So I was on a 688, Los Angeles class, reading about another Los Angeles class, chasing Russians around while I was doing that. So that was pretty cool. I mean, what an amazing opportunity to be given, the keys to the castle, so to speak, for the Clancy universe. Jack Ryan and with Hunt for Red October, I think it's safe to say that, Clancy established the military thriller genre. He's the grandfather of the military thriller genre. And for us to be handed the canon and all these great characters and trusted with them is just surreal.
Yeah, that was something too that when his books came out, everyone said how realistic it was, how accurate it was. I don't know anything about submarines when I read it. I just loved the book, but you actually knew. Were you blown away how accurate things were, the descriptions and technical stuff?
Yeah, I think that was the other interesting thing about Clancy is that, he was a research fanatic, and he spent the time to really look at, James fighting ships and detailed, Naval Institute press publications and anything that he could get his hands on to understand the platform. And he really wanted to introduce the American reader to this sort of secret special universe that is submarine warfare. And, he captured people's imaginations because we're called the silent service for a reason. Submariners don't talk about the things that they do. But at the same time, even though we have a code of silence and, we need to protect the missions and the means and methods that we conduct, I do think it's really important for the American people to understand what submariners do and why we do it. And that's okay. We need the next generation of warfighters to come aboard the Navy and enroll in the submarine, pipeline to become the next generation of submarine, the next Burt Mancuso. We're looking for those people. So without knowing that this service exists and what submarines do, it's really hard to fill that pipeline with, motivated, eager, intelligent young people.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, never thought about that. That's a great take. That actually inspires people to join reading, watching the movie, reading those books.
Yes,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah,
It's why I joined, right?
yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that till just now too. That's amazing. He did all that research. That was before the internet. So he
Before the
probably had
internet.
like binders of research information.
Yeah, and he was given access by the military after the hunt for Red October,
Wow.
but not during the hunt, not while he was writing that book. So he really pulled off something remarkable, which is, it was the combination of his imagination and his research. Because some of the things that he put in the book were purely conjecture and his imagination. They happen to be, they say, stranger than fiction, right? The truth is stranger than fiction. Sometimes you get it right. Sometimes you predict something that might be ahead of your time, And so I think in some respects he anticipated some technologies and some research that hadn't happened yet, but was theoretical. So that's kind of cool too. And so all fiction writers, we all try to imagine things that haven't happened yet to stay competitive in our own industry, just to stay ahead of our own competition with a different what if.
Yeah, so I have to ask you too. So, well, really curious about what that process was like for you and Jeffrey to take over. Especially Jack Ryan. I mean, that's like the probably one of the most iconic thriller characters out there. Uh,
Yeah.
was it? How did that process work? Do you have to like audition?
That's a great question. No, we didn't have to audition. Well, we kind of auditioned in one sense. So we didn't know we were auditioning. Let me put it that way.
Ah,
So yeah, Tom Colgan at Penguin Random House is the steward of all the Clancy books. He was Tom Clancy's editor before Tom passed away in 2013, and he was working with Clancy. And Clancy's health was declining, and he knew that. I don't think he knew that he was, his death was imminent. He didn't, so he certainly didn't know that. But he was slowing down, and he was thinking about his legacy, and he was thinking about how do I continue, these characters, if I can't keep up the pace. So that's when they brought Mark Greaney aboard. So Tom Colgan was instrumental at bringing Mark Greaney aboard to take over he started writing with Tom Colgan, and then after Tom passed, Mark continued the Jack Ryan series. And then under Tom Colgan, Jack Ryan Jr. series was stood up as well. And he's managed the two different series and the Clancy estate, been the go-between Penguin Random House and the Clancy estate, and all the authors. So he plays a pivotal role in the selection of the authors for both series. And so after Mark Greaney, Mark Cameron wrote. And so we had been asked by Tom Colgan to write a book called Rogue Asset, which was a book for the Webb Griffin estate, which is another estate. Webb Griffin passed away, and they continued the Presidential Agent series. And so we wrote the first non-Griffin book in that series. And I think Colgan really liked it. And I think it was also, like you said, an audition to see, okay, when Cameron is ready to retire from Jack Ryan Sr., do these guys maybe have what it takes? Because I think with Colgan, he's always thinking about these are, especially the Jack Ryan Sr. books, they're big geopolitical books.
mhm.
You have to have subject matter knowledge of the US government and the US military and the intelligence community, because Jack Ryan is sitting atop of this giant pyramid of, military might and intelligence, and how can you tell a story about that if you don't know anything about that, right? So I think there was a little bit of an audition. And so he saw that, oh yeah, these guys can handle geopolitical situations. We have we have a good yarn, and write some interesting characters. And so then when Cameron was ready to retire from the series, I think Mark Cameron and Tom Colgan sat down and said, hey, who would be good successors? And when Colgan was like, I think Andrews and Wilson would be good. What do you think? Cameron's like, yeah, I like those guys writing. I'd be happy. I'd feel comfortable handing the reins off to them.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, and I can see now why all those writers selected to continue those. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, they're all veterans or like Mark Cameron, law enforcement veterans. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense to really understand that world, to write into in that world. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned that too. The how important the military and geopolitical information is into these books. And I know you guys are writing a Andrews and Wilson book, not trying to write like Tom Clancy, but what elements of his voice or the worldview do you think was essential to carry over to this book? Which, by the way, is awesome. Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
The publisher
Yeah,
said,
no, that's a great question. So I think when you first, after you get over the initial shock of, oh, I'm going to be writing this, right? And the euphoria that comes with that, then comes the sort of, oh shit moment, right? Like, oh
imagine.
no, how can we write like Clancy? And I think, Tom Colgan knows this is not his first rodeo. So he said to us, I don't expect you to write like Tom Clancy. In fact, if you tried, you would fail and the readers wouldn't like the book because they'd know, oh, you're trying to copy Clancy's style. You clearly can't write like Clancy. Only Clancy can write like Clancy. And it would feel like you're trying to ape the master. And so what he said is, what I want you to do is be faithful to the characters and the ethos of the series, but write like Anders and Wilson. I'm bringing you guys in because I like the way you tell stories. And so that's very empowering. So instead of being intimidated, you're now suddenly empowered. You're like, oh, okay, good. All I have to do is do what I already do and just do it really well and be faithful to the characters. So then when you go back and you start researching and rereading books and thinking about your take, the goal is, well, Jack Ryan needs to be, a moral, upstanding Boy Scout who always does the right thing. And, his wife, his marriage to Kathy is a healthy one. It's a positive one. They support each other. And that John Clark will put his country and his service above himself. And he will always take chances and he will do whatever's necessary to win at the end of the day. So you start to build out, okay, what's the essential DNA of these characters? And then I think it feels authentic to the readers because then, suddenly when you finish the Cameron book and you pick up the first Anders and Wilson, it's not like, oh, well, this Jack Ryan is an asshole. Like the last one wasn't. Why is this guy such a jerk? No, that's not who Jack Ryan is. So even though maybe the way that our prose flows or how we structure our chapters or internal monologue, those things are unique to our voice, as Anders and Wilson. But the character feels authentic and feels the same. So we tried very hard to be faithful to the canon, faithful to the intent that Clancy had when he started the series about who Jack Ryan is and what he stood for and how he conducts himself.
Yeah, it's like you guys. It's like being the new Bond.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
kind of crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this book, so the story puts Kyle Ryan, who's Jack Ryan's son, in a devastating position. He's lone survivor of a mission gone wrong in Africa, in Angola, I believe it was, right? Angola, yes.
Yep.
And so I was kind of curious about that. So what drew you to building the book around that emotional pivot and that geographical area?
So when we first started with Act of Defiance, we knew we wanted to bring Kyle and Katie into the canon. When you last saw them, they were little kids.
Mm-hmm.
And now Dad's grown up, he's president, and they've grown up. And so Jack Ryan Jr. has his own series. We know a lot about Jack. We don't know as much about the kids, the younger kids. And so it gave us, especially, starting with number 24, and I think there's 11 or 12 Jack Ryan Jr. books too. That's a lot of material. It's hard to come up with something new and interesting, at least from a plot perspective, that hadn't been done before. And so to avoid retreading, what we decided to do was really focus on the Ryan family. So if you've ever watched, there's a television show called Blue Bloods,
Right.
and it's about a police family, right? And the family is in the business of law enforcement, right? That's the family business. And we feel like the Ryans are in the family business of protecting America. So we decided, let's dig into that, connective tissue of what makes a Ryan a Ryan. And it'll be the same for the kids, Katie and Kyle, but they're going to have their own paths, right? They're going to have found their own way, and they have different personalities from Jack Jr. and different personalities from their dad, but some elements will overlap. So books 1 and 2 in the Andrews and Wilson series, Act of Defiance and Defense Protocol, that's really focused on Katie. But we always knew we wanted to bring Kyle in. And we kind of had this interesting idea that Kyle was not the black sheep of the family per se, but he's definitely the one who's maybe a little more detached, a little little less communicative, maybe slightly on the spectrum. Just a guy who's, one of these things is not like the other type of situation, right? And so when we meet him, we see him doing a job that we've not seen any of the other Ryans doing. He's a cyber field operative. And we thought, well, let's put him in a place as far away from the rest of the Ryans as possible. So, Africa geopolitically, it's quite an active area, right? Because it's third world countries that are all trying to actively become first world countries. And the Chinese, with their Belt and Road Initiative, have made a lot of inroads into Africa and sub-Saharan Africa in particular, where they're exerting their influence to build infrastructure and telecommunications and mining and petrochemical industries, and this involvement does not come without a cost.
Yeah, they're not just being nice.
They're not just being nice, right? And so we wanted to make, we're always trying to, there's a lot of people who don't want to watch the news, and I can't blame them. The news is not really the news anymore. The news is like verbal combat these days, right? But there's these issues out there, these geopolitical events that people need to be aware of. And so, yes, this book is fiction, but it's all based on actual things that are happening in real life. So I understand. I'm the same way. Like, at the end of the hard work day, I don't sometimes want to turn on the news and hear people bickering and fighting and accusing and blah, 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 blah. I need escapism. Give me a great book. But doesn't mean we can't learn something, from our adventures. And so that's why we picked this area, because it's not in the news. People are not always talking about it. It is across the ocean. It is an area with different cultures and different activities that people might not be aware of what's happening. And so that's why we picked where we did and set the setting for this book.
Yeah, I thought that was very cool because, and like you said, people don't know this. I was born and raised in Costa Rica, a tiny little country in Central America, and the Chinese government, they built our national stadium, our bridges. So I was fascinated to read that here. I'm like, oh, so I totally saw what you guys were going for there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I also thought it was really cool too because it opens up with a mission being compromised, not to give too much away. And I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. Kyle Ryan is going to kick some ass, and then it's like, wait a second, he's kind of like freaking out. So I thought
he's just trying to survive.
Yeah, so I thought that was kind of cool. It was like, oh, he's not like a like a superhero. He's just like a regular guy trying to figure out how to get the hell out of there.
Yeah. And, that's why we made him a runner. I always joke with my daughters. I was like, look, if you had one thing you could be really, really good at physically, running really fast for a really long time is probably the best, right? Because most of the bad guys, they're going to stop chasing you after like 50 or 100 yards. You just got to make it 100 yards and they're going to get tired and stop. And so that's sort of a joke, but it's kind of true also, right? So we're like, okay, let's set it up so that Kyle, who's this cross-country, athlete, he's not some badass with muscles like Schwarzenegger, and he's not like his brother who goes around shooting people and kicking in doors and all that stuff. He's not an operator. He just got to make it back to the embassy.
Yeah, he didn't even have a gun in that first opening
No,
scene.
no. I mean, he is a guy. His weapon is a computer, right? And when he's compromised and his team's compromised, he's just got to make it back to the embassy. And so it's a it's a fun, sort of a fun action sequence. I think it's two or three, maybe four chapters where it's just him trying to survive to get back to the embassy.
Yeah, yeah. And also, in reading the book too, I can see that Kyle Ryan is probably the one of Jack Ryan's kids that's more like Jack Ryan, like his character,
Yeah,
his background.
yeah,
So yeah, so that was kind of cool to put the tie into the two of them together.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So okay, so now I'm kind of curious now too about your writing process and all that. You guys have been writing together for many years now. So I'm just kind of curious, how has that partnership evolved over the years? Because of course, you have your own books and all this, and now writing in this universe. Has that changed a lot there over the years, or are you guys not aren't fixing what's not broken?
Yeah, I think we've gotten better at working as a team, but I think we were lucky because from the very beginning, we started writing together in 2015. That was the first. We did Tier 1, and then we did a couple other books that nobody knows about called Beijing Red and Hong Kong Black for Crooked Lane, but they were written under a pseudonym Alex Rhyme. Even early on, we were partnering on, multiple series. So that's kind of one thing that's interesting. Right out of the gate, we were working on 2 series. Now we're working on 4. And to be able to do that requires that it's not about the writing, it's about the book, if that makes sense. And let me explain where I'm going with this. The paradigm that we have is it's not about, well, I wrote this sentence or this idea is so cool, it has to go in the book because I thought of it. It's not me, having this interview with saying, did you read chapter 17? Because I wrote that one. It's not about that. It's about, at the end of the day, like when you read this book, did you have a great adventure? And did you feel like the 12 or 13 or 15 hours or however long it takes you to read it, was that time well spent? And when your goal is that, right, then suddenly it doesn't matter who wrote what or whose idea led to this or that or whatever. The journey of getting to a good book is all that matters for us. So as long as we're having fun and both of us get to write and both of us get to contribute and it's pretty much equal, so it's not one guy doing all the work and the other guy just taking credit, then our partnership works. And so luckily, we both like writing. We both don't mind editing. And we both have a lot of fun, like when we're working on a project together. We talk to each other on the phone a couple times a day during the week. Just because it's fun. It's more fun to joke around, or if you get stuck, you call the other guy or you say, I have an idea, here's what I'm thinking of, and what do you think of that? And they're like, oh, that's cool, but after that, what would you do next? And you're like, oh, I don't know. He's like, well, then what if this happened next? And so that process of collaboration that we have, we've gotten so much faster at it. We write sort of fearlessly now because we don't have to worry about getting it perfect on our first pass. So, I used to, when I would write by myself, it took me like 8 years to write my first book. And I would go back and I would take a chapter I'd written, and I'd read it all the way through and I'd tinker with it and tweak it and I'd try to improve it a little bit. In the Navy, we would call that polishing the cannonball. It's like, once it's shiny, like how much more shiny can you get it, And it's actually just a little bit of fear, and it's another type of procrastination to just be like, you know what? I'm just going to kind of go back and tweak this thing that's already done, then do the hard part of writing new material, because that's the hard part. For fresh new material, de novo writing is the hard part. Well, with Jeff, I don't worry about that anymore. I'm free to take chances and to write as fast and as down and dirty as I want because I know he's going to make a pass on it. And he can fill in any holes or rewrite stuff or fix it and vice versa. So there's a lot of power in collaboration. So over the years, the idea that we could write 4 books in 1 year when we first started in 2015 seemed, would have sounded outrageous. We couldn't have done it back then. We didn't have our system quite, the gears weren't quite as lubricated as they are now. But now, I mean, I don't think we could optimize any more than we have.
Yeah, you guys, if I remember correctly, you're in different states too, right? You live in different states.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which
so
is a good thing, actually, because if we could actually get together face to face, we'd probably drink beer and watch TV.
yeah, you'll find how to procrastinate if we're both in the same room.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
know that because when we take trips together, we end up hanging out at the bar and having drinks and then watching Gaff again or something like that. So
No work gets done.
no work gets done.
Yeah, you guys have been very prolific too, because you just had a new tier one book come out recently as well, right?
Yeah, it came out November 7th, Tier 1, Book 9, The Adversary. It's this blue covered book back here.
Yeah. So
Um,
two books in 1 month would be
yeah,
new books being out.
yeah,
How's that whirlwind of promoting two books, working
yeah.
on two books?
In that case, it just worked out that both publishers wanted a November launch. We thought that the Clancy was maybe going to come out in December, but they backed it up into November. So originally, I think it was going to come out early December, and Adversary is going to come out early November, but they fell in the same month. They, different publishers, they can do what they want.
Yeah, yeah. Like the difference between working on one of in your universe, like a tier one universe, versus the Jack Ryan universe. Can you tell us a little bit about that? How is the approach different? How that works?
Yeah, with the Ryan universe, one of the tricks too is that started 1984. So we've got 40 years of material. Now, the world has changed a lot in 40 years. Technology has changed a lot. The geopolitical status quo has changed a lot. And so we've inherited a canon that spans 4 decades, multiple authors. And so you can't please everybody. You don't, there's a lot of things you don't have control over, right? And there's certain plots that we can't tell because the they don't go along with the ethos of the book. So we're a little bit more hemmed in, I would say, on Clancy than we are on Tier 1. Tier 1, we can go wherever we want, we can do whatever we want, right? And we can kill whoever we want. You cannot kill the Ryans, right? They're not going to die. You know that going in that Jack's not going to die during the book. But in Tier 1, you never know who's going to die, and we've we've killed some people off, and so that's another whole really interesting topic, which is we've sort of decided that we'll never let our readers get too comfortable because that's real life, right? Like there's stakes in these missions and people die, and people get hurt and people retire and people sometimes opt out, because it's emotionally, physically, financially, biologically draining, right? So we put our characters in Tier 1 through the paces a little bit more than we can, like, say, in the Clancy verse. And so when you pick up a Tier 1, you don't know. I mean, it might be the last book where Jack, John Dempsey is there. And I mean, I'm not saying we did it in this book, but I'm saying you have to always be in the back of your mind as a reader scared that Andrews and Wilson might kill off one of your favorites because we do that.
Yeah, you've done it before.
Yeah.
I also noticed too when I was catching up with you guys for this interview. I noticed that on your website you've been working with a lot of major studios on different projects, pitching. Some things are options, some scripts are done. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And I'm also very curious what it is working, in the book publishing world versus Hollywood.
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll give you a long-winded answer. So Hollywood is a challenge. I know people are very excited about it because we love film and television, and for good reason. Film and television is amazing. But the level of complexity required to get a project made is orders of magnitude bigger than publishing. With publishing, we write the book, it goes to developmental editor, we get feedback, we make some changes, it goes to copy editing, and then it's out, and it's out on time, And I think in one sense, that's pretty wonderful, right? You imagine a story, you get to tell the story, and as the authors, we're the director, we're the cinematographer, we're the casting agent, We're all the character. We are the actors, right? We're the special effects department. We're doing all the roles because it's Alan. It's in your mind. Your mind is filling in all the stuff that would be on the screen, and so we have a lot of control. When you get to film and television, what happens is suddenly there's a lot more stakeholders and there's a lot more money involved. A feature film, you're talking, the types of books that we write, you're talking, 20 million of and up. To make a television show with tier one, you're talking 2 million an episode and up. Well, these type of money is just not laying around, and it's a lot of people have to invest in the project, both financially and professionally. That ultimately results in, a lot of cooks in the kitchen, right? Because you have these stakeholders that are like, I'm not willing to risk my career on this unless I have a say in, how it turns out and who's cast and how's it written and the like. Well, that creates a lot of difficulty. It slows things down. It creates debates about who gets cast and who's writing and how's it adapted and what sort of budget will we have and what can we accomplish with that budget. And so all these sort of risk factor mitigations and stakeholder inputs just cause everything to slow down. And that's why it takes a long time to get anything made. And so, we've sort of taken the approach of, if all we ever did was just cross our fingers and hope that tier one got made, and that was our only golden goose, we had one golden goose laying eggs and that was it. One misstep, one thing that goes wrong that causes the series to get delayed, and that's it. So we took the approach of, no, we're gonna try to populate as many projects as we can, because we know that every single one of them is going to be rife with complexity and difficulties, and so we've tried to do that. What's cool about that is it's allowed us to meet a lot of really great people, interesting people, different producers and actors and directors and potential showrunners. And we've developed relationships with these folks. And what you find when you get into this is that everyone in the business is just as frustrated, as the writers are, because, there's only a limited number of outlets for these films and televisions to appear. You've got sort of the big streamers and then the theaters and network television. Hollywood has been under siege lately. A lot of transformation, a lot of change since COVID. And so, there you have, thousands of people that are worried about their own employment and whether they'll continue to have a job and where's our content going to go. And so the Netflixes, Amazons, and Apples of the world, they have a lot of power, a lot of control over, if they don't greenlight a television series or a movie, your odds of getting something made are dramatically reduced, right? So it's just been a big learning curve. I've had a lot of fun doing it. I know Jeff has too. We are frustrated that some things are taking longer than we thought they would, but lots of projects are slowly moving forward.
Yeah.
I'll put it that way.
That's awesome. Yeah, what do they call it? Developmental hell?
Yes, developmental hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's real. It's a real thing.
So a couple more questions, Brian, before I let you go. So, because I always ask about advice for aspiring writers that listen to this podcast, and especially writers who want to write the type of books that you guys write, maybe like especially if there's a veteran. I know you guys do a lot of work helping veterans. And you have a website that helps writers. Can you tell us a little bit about that and some advice that you would have for them listening to this?
Sure. So I'm one of the principals at careerauthors.com, along with Paul Munier and Hank Philip P. Ryan, Jessica Strasser, and Dana Isaacson. And so Dana's an editor. He used to work at Random House. And Paula is an author and an agent. And Hank's an author. And Jessica's an author. So we have authors, an agent, and an editor providing 360-degree advice on the publishing industry. We don't make any money off of this website. In fact, the five of us just split the operating costs and all the email costs associated with maintaining the email list. So it's truly is a labor of love, and it's actually just our way to give back to the writing community at large because we had a lot of people that all of us were helped by advice, both writing advice on the craft of writing, but also just professional advice about, hey, don't do that. Hey, are you not doing this? You should be doing this. The do's and don'ts of trying to get published. And getting published is complicated and frustrating and hard, and also just does require some inside baseball knowledge. And so what we've tried to do is just share that information, give back. So on Career Authors, you'll find blog posts from the five of us, but also we have guest authors post every week. So you name an author, they've probably posted an article on Career Authors about something in writing. It could be about point of view, it could be about subtext, it could be about how to write a historical thriller or romance, or how to write a query letter, or how do you write a hook, or what's an elevator pitch, or how do you get an agent? Like all these things are on there. And so go there, type in your query, it'll pull up a bunch of articles, probably several, maybe 3 to 4 on every topic now, because the site's been up and running for 10 years or so now. And it's all free. It's all free.
Yeah, it's a great site. Yeah, so yeah, that's excellent advice. So Brian, before I let you go, what's next for you two? What are you guys working on now? Can you give us a sneak peek?
Yeah. So the big news that we have is we launched our own publishing imprint at Blackstone Publishing called AWE, Andrews and Wilson Entertainment, or AW. And so all of the Andrews and Wilson books are going to fall under AWE. Let's see the little AWE logo right
Oh,
there.
I like it. Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So in addition to our own books, so we are going to be, we're not actually going to be editing or acquiring any books. Blackstone will be doing that, but we do get to help cross promote and bring attention to the authors that come into our imprint. So we're excited, Jack Stewart's going to do a book in our imprint, Don Bentley, Josh Hood, and over the coming months, we'll have announcements about other authors. We're starting the imprint with veterans and people who served in the intelligence community, or series that are written in the space that celebrate sort of this mission before self mentality, the idea of hero's journey, moral actors, patriotism, the types of things that we try to showcase in Andrews and Wilson works. And so in addition to novels, we're also going to be releasing a series of short stories. So a lot of the things, Alan, that you talked about that you saw on the website, those titles, a lot of those are short stories. And so especially after they've been picked up or optioned for film or television, we're excited to share those with people so they can see, hey, this movie might be coming out in a year or two. Here's the short story that got it started, right? So the first one of these that's coming out is called First Ranger, comes out December 20th, and it'll be on Audible and Amazon Kindle ebook. And the idea is it'd be about equivalent to a 4-hour audiobook approximately. So, they're long short stories. They're not quite novellas, but they're like a third of a book essentially in length. So you're definitely getting your money's worth. They'll be priced at a lower price point, but each of them is about something different than our Tier 1 or Clancy or Sons of Valor series. These give us, it's like our little laboratory or playground where we get to experiment. So First Ranger is the story of Thomas Knowlton, who's a real person. He was recruited by George Washington in 1775 to create America's first special operations unit, known as the Knowlton's Rangers. So he's sort of considered the father of American Special Forces, Thomas Knowlton. And so we're introducing readers to what was it like to try to be a special operator in 1775 when your weapon was a musket with a bayonet, and you didn't have comms, and you didn't have satellite imagery, and you didn't have a helicopter that you could fast rope into. How do these guys operate, with the technology of the day? And it's funny because if you took somebody like John Dempsey, who's a Navy SEAL, and you stuck him back in 1775, he'd have no choice but to use the tactics and methods and means available, technologies available to him at the time, right? He would be a less lethal operator than he is today without his NVGs and his bulletproof vest and his, assault rifle with, optics. And so it's just really cool to dig into what was it like to be a warrior back then. So that's the first book, First Ranger. It's the first short story comes out, our very first historical military thriller.
Oh, that sounds really cool. Yeah, I can imagine with a little musket.
Yeah.
Old school.
Yeah. Learning about that was fascinating, So there's actually a piece of technology. There was a British inventor who had invented a particular type of rifle where there's a lever that allows you to sort of open the bolt. Before a bolt action was invented, this opened a little chamber so you could load your musket pellet in through the top instead of having to ramrod it down the barrel. But it was invented during the Revolutionary War, and it actually saw action on the British side, but it was so expensive and difficult to make that there were very few of them that were made.
Yeah, well, that sounds great. That sounds awesome. I'm looking forward to that one. And so, what's your website? Where can readers look information on that and your guys' books? Can you give us that one?
Yeah, andrews-wilson.com.
All right, so Tom Clancy's comes out November 25th. So by the time people are listening to this podcast or watching the video, it'll be out there. Go check it. It's awesome. All right, Brian, thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Thanks, Alan. Great to see you.
Thanks for listening to Meet the Thriller Author, hosted by Alan Peterson. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. It helps other thriller fans discover the show. You can find all past episodes, show notes, and author interviews at thrillerauthors.com, including conversations with icons like Dean Koontz, Frida McFadden, and Lee Child. And if you're looking for your next gripping read, check out Alan's own psychological thrillers and crime fiction novels at thrillingreads.com/books. Until next time, stay safe, keep reading, and keep the thrills coming.